Sticking with America 250 celebrations over at Tinker Swiss Cottage today, the summer lecture series highlighted the early history of Rockford and its ancestors. The presentation explored the work of Dr. John Molyneux and his book about the history of African Americans in Rockford. You can check it out at Mays Books or the Rockford Public Library downtown. The lecture shedding light on influential figures that helped pave the way. Local historian Amanda Becker says without this research, the history of early Rockford would not be complete.
So early African American history in Rockford is more than just about Lewis Lemon. There's other characters such as Isaac Wilson, the Battle of the Barbers, Dave Williams, and Reuben Armstrong. There's some intersecting kind of ideas in American history that we'll talk about, such as temperance, prohibition, race relations in Rockford, and all sorts of other kind of interconnecting things.